Next, we have a speed panel. We've got our very own Brian Baglow, who's going to come up and moderate that. He's going to be talking to Fyber and MobileGroove about how to get brands to advertise in your apps. Brian, are you there, sir? Hello, sir. I'm not sure you're on camera yet. Here we go. That's more like it. Perfect. Hey, Peggy, how you doing?
Good afternoon, Oscar.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello, world.
Hello.
Cool. Hey, I will leave you to it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Oscar. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our speed panel on how to get brands to advertise in your apps. Now, we do seem to be one panelist short, so I will apologise in advance that Lev from Anzu doesn't seem to be with us. However, it's like we're going to crack on. We've got a lot to cover in 20 minutes, and hopefully you can join us part of the way through. So, folks, I would like you to introduce yourselves quickly. It is a speed panel. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here this afternoon. Beth, can we start with you, please?
Definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Gilmore, and I manage the Omni DSP business for Fyber's marketplace. And I work closely with brands and agencies to help them effectively scale their campaigns in the mobile app environment.
Wonderful. And Peggy?
Yeah, my name is Peggy Salz. I'm the founder and chief analyst at MobileGroove, which is my company. But I'm also on the panel not just as someone who understands the mobile industry and mobile apps, but also as a board member of the Mobile Marketing Association in Germany, here where I'm based. So I'm bringing some brand insights and maybe a couple requests on some people out there.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you both here, and thank you very much for joining us. So let's jump in with both feet. What we've been hearing this afternoon and what we've seen in the last 12 months seems to have been an explosion in branded content in games, especially in and around the online sector. We've had album launches, live performances, product placement, fashion launches, partnerships between retailers and game creators. That all seems to be happening in the sort of the PC, the console, the online world. Where are we in mobile? What's the state of play for us right now?
Well, I can kind of chime in with, I've been doing this for 10 years. And when I first started, brands were very just nervous about the mobile gaming space. They really didn't understand the audience. It was very confusing to them, and a place that they didn't necessarily want to prioritize, but it has completely changed thanks to COVID and all our gaming consumption. Brands are more confident in rewarded video. They're more confident in the metrics that mobile provides. And it's been really amazing having more proactive conversations with them. But I still think that they face many challenges when they're trying to effectively execute these campaigns and choosing the right partnerships to effectively do so across DSPs and their measurement providers and all of the various data partners that they want to leverage for their campaigns.
Wonderful. Peggy?
I would even say, in addition to that, I'm looking at it just from a business perspective. And I have the feeling that because it's such new territory and so critical right now because of the pandemic, the money always follows the eyeballs, and guess where they are, right? They are in games. And it's not so much which channel, if it's going to be the console or on mobile, because I'm speaking with a lot of brands who are very, very interested in this. But because it's also new territory, leaving aside whether or not how they're going to set it up sort of in the back end, I would say the front end is a huge challenge as well. It's like, okay, they're asking me, because I also contribute to PocketGamer, and they're asking me at a board meeting just recently, who are the top games companies we should be looking at? Who are they? What do they do? It's not always immediately games companies don't make it necessarily very simple to engage with them. You have to figure out, sometimes you have to look, really look on the website, is this a hyper casual or a casual game? Is this mid-core? What do they do? How do I really connect with them? Who's in charge there? Who would it be? Who is the person I would start my conversation with? So to Beth's point, it's very much about getting the measurement and the technology right, but I think there's also relationship building work on behalf of the games companies to say, hey, you know what, we're open for business.
Now, I find that really interesting because I've worked in the games industry for a long, long time, and it's always been somewhat insular, you know, a little bit isolated. It does its own thing. And it's really, it's the advent of non-dedicated hardware, mobile phones, that's really kind of forced the issue and forced it to engage with the rest of the world. And I think your point about finding the right people is a really interesting one, because are you finding, I mean, as experts in the advertising sector, are you finding that the games companies themselves want to engage? Are they coming and knocking on the doors and looking for brands? Or, you know, is all the action coming from the outside in?
You want to start?
Yeah, I've found a combination from the various publishers I've worked with. Some have direct sales teams and they've established agency relationships in the past. And then some do not have any interest in having a relationship with the advertisers that are running on their apps. So I do know that it is vital for app developers to have a relationship with the advertisers that are running on their apps, and to help them support the data flow that they need, whether it's they are able to pass first party data. How amazing would that be if they can more effectively pass contextual data? That would be amazing as well, to help communicate that. And I mean, why I wanted to join this panel was to just tell the app developers, it's really important that you choose a mediation partner and exchange partnerships that have direct Omni DSP integrations, and I can go into that in a little bit later, but and that have an agency sales team, because you need help repping your inventory and you need help making sure that you can build deals. And that's how brands buy. They buy, a lot of them prioritize deals. And so you're going to need help doing that. So make sure that you partner with the right monetization partners to help you effectively do that.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think you need to make it very easy to do business with you.
Yeah.
The good news is, however, that many games companies, when I go to the other end of the spectrum and think of those shows, and even when I'm moderating here on Pocket Gamer Connect shows, they think they need to have a massive reach, that it's only really going to be for the major companies. But the brands I was talking to, they're like, you know, this is new to us, this is new territory. So we're very happy to sort of like dip a toe in the water here. So it doesn't have to be like the Supercells of the world and the Rovios. It doesn't have to be that. It can just be what I was talking to, and I can get into that in a moment if you want me to, Brian, very interesting brand conversations with brands you would not imagine would want to be into a game advertisement, but they want to desperately, desperately. And they're looking at the same way that we've evolved in influencer marketing, to the sense that we can say, oh, there's macro and there's micro, and micro has its advantages, right? That's the same mentality I'm seeing evolving here amongst the brands. Is we want to get involved. The measurement absolutely has to be on the mark. But the good news is that you can have the measurement on the mark. You don't necessarily have to be the blockbuster title to start the party. That's the good news. You want me to get to my anecdote?
Yes,
Brian?
please. Yes.
So you wouldn't imagine this, but I was at a board meeting recently for the Mobile Marketing Association, speaking with brands. And it's like, and they're waking up and saying, wow, you know what? Our audience, they are not here. They are not on TV. They are not on the media we think they are. And this is Germany, where there's still a very strong print media, but a very, very pent up demand for mobile apps. And they're exploding. Mobile apps and games are exploding. And so companies such as Bayer for aspirin will just love to advertise here, because what they believe, and I probably is the case, I'm not quite as maybe diehard as you, Brian, and others, but the whole idea is that if you've been playing games all day, particularly on a small mobile, on a smartphone, you might have a headache, or you might need eye drops. They sell eye drops too. So wouldn't this just be great? Take a break from the game, take an aspirin or something. The point is that it's context that they find very interesting. So the companies, the good news again for games companies out there tuning in, is that it's not just about the really, really cool consumer goods. It's Nike and others, absolutely, but not only. And I think that's where you can also sort of open the aperture of how you approach this and say, we can have contextual advertising that doesn't annoy anyone, make money, everyone's happy. As long, of course, as we have Liz's measurement to make it all work out, right? It's all down to ROAS.
Yeah. Oh, listen, it's everything has to be measured, everything has to be quantified. Otherwise, we're all just, you know, going round and round in circles. And I think for me, this is the thing. And to go back to your point, Beth, you've already said, work with an agency, you know, find some expert partner to help you. But I'm conscious of the time. So what can games companies, developers and publishers be doing to make themselves more attractive and to open up this market in a really sort of practical way? What should they be thinking about? And I'll address that to you first, Beth, please.
Sure. So brands are very heavily investing in connected TV, which we all know. Mm-hmm. And to Peggy's point that they want to access this gaming community, it's more cost effective for them to do that versus connected TV. So now is their moment to repurpose a lot of the video creative that they're using on mobile app. They can use their social video. Brands can effectively use what they're already creating to now scale in mobile app. And I think to all the publishers out there, this is your moment to really optimize your video experience. Make sure that you have a really well thought out video strategy and how you show video to your users and how you price it, because we will see more video budget coming into mobile app programmatic. And something we're trying to do at Fyber is really bring rewarded video into the programmatic ecosystem. A lot of the ad networks are dominating this inventory source, and we believe that brands will be able to more effectively tap into it through their omni DSPs like the Trade Desk and DV360 as we continue to grow and scale rewarded video in the bidding environment. And so publishers, don't be afraid of non-skip. Your users will be, if you can reward them for that viewing experience, that's amazing. And then just make sure that you're working with the right mediation and exchange partners that will enable viewability reporting and some of the other checkbox buying that brands require to effectively scale.
Fabulous. Peggy, do you have anything to add?
I like also the point about repurposing. That's a very good point indeed, because that's another question, you know, what is the budget going into this? So how publishers could make it simpler for brands to get involved. Yes, rewarded video is also a great format to look at, because I think what the brands want most is they want to be assured that they're going to be in a context that is appreciated, because the brands have all figured out also that just advertising, if the publishers are worried about how it's going to potentially impact the gameplay in a negative way, the brands equally. So they want to have context. That means some data around those moments as well, and maybe also to rethink your gameplay slightly to introduce these moments. So there's moments of accomplishment, you know, there's these emotional moments that just make sense. I mean, I was talking to someone at Deutsche Telekom. He said, you know, we've moved our budget around so that what we're looking for is we're focusing on targeting environments and moments. So in addition to having everything set up to do business, I think it's also make certain your game could adapt to this business once you get it. It needs to make sense. It can't just be stuck on like a Post-it at the end of it all. You know, it's got to be integrated. It's got to feel like part of the experience. But of course, publishers know how to do that best anyway.
Now, you see, that's a very, very interesting point, because for many games companies, many developers out there, particularly, if it happens in an interstitial, if it's rewarded video, it's not their problem. You know, they see it as something separate to the game. You know, and the point of making it part of the celebration, you know, far more integrated into the gameplay and the meta game, is, to me, incredibly, incredibly important as part of the overall experience. Otherwise, you are kind of trying to keep them at arm's length. So is this where we're going? Are we starting to see ads in general, but brands looking for, more, more alternatives? Are we looking at product placement? Are we looking at, branded games? It was where we started way back in the 80s with things like Cool Spot. Is this where we perhaps can see things moving up a gear over the next couple of years?
I would just quickly chime in, absolutely, because the measurement is so different. It's really about, you have to think acquisition, absolutely. I'm not saying that's not important. That absolutely is important, but you're trying to acquire certain users from the get-go, certain players from the get-go, and trying to do a little bit less of the take a chance, right? And to your point, the same thing happens moving forward. It's like, it has to be part of an experience, because if it's not going to be something that you can deepen engagement on, then why bother? I mean, the possible exception might be hyper casual, but I'm always hearing about hyper casual, and I've talked to some companies who are figuring out the mechanics to really make that into a different type of gameplay, a different type of loop. So I wonder, I think it's really all for keeps. It's all for keeps.
Fabulous. And Beth, are you Fyber seeing any moves in this area?
Well, I'll just say that, to just give more context into the brand demand that's running on the Fyber marketplace, I would say the majority of the budgets that we see through the trade desk, and now scaling through DV360 and Verizon and a few other Omni DSPs that are focused across all the channels, for the open marketplace budgets that we're serving, the majority are trying to drive down the funnel KPIs. So it is fintech, it's all of the e-commerce sites, it's on-demand streaming, it's QSR. So all the fast food brands are now really looking to tap into mobile app because they know it performs. Now, my big ask to the Omni DSP community is to really get it right with measurement, because this is a really interesting time, clearly, where if a brand is using SK Ad Network, or they're using the trade desk's measurement, or Singular, and it's not synced properly, and they're not able to get the effective reporting that they need, you're going to lose that budget to a managed network, a mobile first DSP, for example, or network that is building that relationship. So we're like at a really interesting time where the Liftoffs and the Molokos of the world are wanting to go into the brand and agency world, but that takes time. It's like a 8 to 12 months sell, essentially. And then you have the Omni DSPs that already have these really strong agency relationships, but need to effectively solve for attribution for them and make sure that their checkbox buying is supported through their platform if they want to maintain that budget and help deliver against the down the funnel KPIs that are running for these brands.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, believe it or not, that's us very, very nearly out of time. So if I could ask you both one key piece of information, one takeaway for the developers and publishers out there, what should they do tomorrow to make themselves more attractive to ads? Peggy, let's ask you first.
One thing. I'm thinking about the accessibility, because that's an easy fix. That's a super easy one. That's like, pick someone, make them in charge of it, redo the website so I know what you're doing and I understand and I can see the game, and I can understand this when I'm doing my due diligence and just sort of researching, because brand, audience, game fit is the first number one to check that box. It's all about finding that right fit. But beyond that, I do know that it would be very helpful to have a clearer idea of who the audience is, because they're looking around, they're looking at this very broadly, and they're saying, hey, I've got aspirin. Who's going to be a fit with that one? Well, it's probably a mid-core, because they're going to be more intense. So, let's see, who has the people in this region, or what age group? So I would say making that all very understandable before they go to someone like Liz, because they want to understand first that fit. The fit is paramount.
Thank you very much indeed, Peggy. And Beth?
Well, I just want to second that, because we've been working closely with our publishers to effectively build collateral and marketing strategies for them on their audience. And a lot of them know, but some don't. And I think it's really, you have to be able to know who your audience is and effectively sell that to these brands. But yeah, I'm definitely more on the tactical side of how to like make it accessible. And I would say, again, really optimize your video experience. Make sure you're not blocking brands that could be running on your campaigns through all the various blocking that happens. Make sure that you know who's repping your inventory at your exchange and bidding partnerships, and that your inventory is going to be included in deals that they're curating on the brand and agency's behalf.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Such a big topic to try and cram into 20 minutes. So I'd like to thank you both, Beth, Peggy. It was wonderful. Oscar, let's not hang about. Back to you,
it's all good. I've actually got a couple of things I want to chuck at you both. I mean, first thing, I love the fact you were talking about data, and it reminds me always, whenever people talk about data, a quote from the Mythbusters. You know, the only difference between screwing around and science is writing it down, which I think is a fantastic. So many profound things came out of that show, as far as I'm concerned. But I think that idea of data is so important, but it's particularly interesting. You've mentioned SCARAD Network. What you didn't mention was one that's affecting the UK right now, because it came into force last week. I think it was last week, which is the AADC. So that's the Age Appropriate Design Code. I think, and being somebody who's currently working with the ICO to try and provide them with some insights on what game developers can and can't do realistically, we think this is a big thing. You know, this is going to be a big problem. In fact, I was actually on a panel last week for Campaign to talk about this issue. And I think one of the things that came out from that conversation is the creativity and working more closely with the game developer is going to be incredibly critical. And it sounds like you both felt that was really important. Do you think that the brands themselves understand that that's valuable, or are we going to basically frighten them from engaging with games industry because we've had this wonderful, kind of open playing field that's now not quite disappearing, but changing? Are we at risk of scaring some brand folks off? What do you think?
I think they would be overwhelmed if they had to have direct relationships with each publisher. But I think they will effectively just need all of the people in the middle to support them and make sure that they can effectively align with their campaign requirements. So if we can make sure that the Omni DSPs are certified with all of the mobile measurement partners so that their attribution reporting works through their UI, if we can make sure that the rewarded video placements and the creative that they're running through their SSP renders properly and is effective and showing an end card to help drive up their CTA. Like, we all in the middle need to help these brands scale. So
are you seeing that happening then? I mean, so I'd love to hear what Peggy thinks as well, but I'm actually, given that I agree with you entirely, and I think a lot of that is going to be on our part. It's also, I think there's going to be a lot of effect on the social media and the app stores. I think they're going to find a lot of demands placed upon them, not just through the UK government, but in general. I think this is going to be becoming increasingly a bugbear, and I think it's going to have a knock-on effect. Are we seeing kind of a level of understanding on the middle layer, the DSPs and so on and so forth?
I do
early
think,
days.
Yeah.
Early days, I think, Liz, don't you believe?
Early days,
because I don't have the feeling they're entirely certain who sits at that table as well.
And we're calling for the players to come up to the table. So let's have a seat.
And for the brands, the brands are thinking, well, the agency is my partner. And so it's really a bit more of, you'd almost want to see closer agency relations between companies like yours and
That
Are you?
is very much strengthening. The agency, SSP relationships are getting stronger, and they believe that they do need to have a stronger relationship with their exchanges because the data is all changing, and they need to like have partners that are curating these media strategy and media plans for them and building these deals essentially, because most of them will operate that way. Now, I think the DSP side is interesting. And as the exchange, I'm calling to the DSPs to figure out who wants to really play in this game, because the agencies are ready and they effectively need to help support that. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it will. And I think it's such an interesting time, given that, you know, we're talking about post-pandemic, something like 80% of the population are involved in games. Even, you know, 2/3 of people over 55 are describing themselves as gamers. You know, so clearly, I've forgotten the report. I can ping it to you later if you're interested. Clearly, we're in such a momentous position where, you know, games are now the primary form of digital entertainment on the planet. So this is where their audiences are. And I think the changes that we're facing, and actually the AADC and all the other stuff is not just affecting games, it's affecting every digital platform. So I think we have an opportunity as games, because we've actually got quite a sensible structure of relationships that already exist. You know, the exchanges, the DSPs and so on and so forth do actually talk to each other. I think we'll see a lot coming from games, which leads in other industries as well. And I think brands will look to trust games in general, I suspect. At least that's my hopeful thought. I'm an optimist, as I'm sure you can tell.
Oh, it's the most exciting time ever, Oscar. I mean, it's always been interesting, but now it's like truly exciting, because we have brands who you would not have imagined. The consumer brands, it was a given that the pioneer brands, the Cokes, the Nikes, that was a given. But you're having like, it's the trickle down effect is that this is now the new medium, and the message in this medium has to be one that is co-created by the publisher and the brand. But there's got to be a lot more education. Probably gives you a couple of ideas for a couple more sessions next time around for Pocket Gamer Connect. We really do need the agencies to be in on this as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
I've actually been talking to Michael at the ICS, so he should be joining us for Pocket Gamer 9 as well. So hopefully we'll be able to pull something like that together for the next session. Guys, that's been fantastic. Thank you very much, and thank you for indulging my crazy questions. There was one last thing. I'm going to just sneak this in. Beside HyperMX, which DSPs or SDK networks are really focused on brands? If you have any kind of suggestions you'd like to throw out there, that would be great.
Well, the Trade Desk is definitely a leader in the space and has all of the agency relationships to date. Same with Google, DV360. That's where you're going to see a lot of the scale. But the mobile first DSPs like Liftoff and Moloko are starting to scale their
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say the budgets are in the Trade Desk and DV360 at the moment.
So you heard it here. You want to get the budgets, talk to those guys. Beth, Peggy, thank you so much. Brian, thank you for so eloquently hosting that session. And we'll move on to the next piece. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Oscar. Thanks, Peggy.
No worries, pleasure.